You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham. We've got a fantastic podcast lined up for you today, and look at me, 2 days in a row. This is fun. Hey, first thing I wanted to mention, by the way, you guys can be involved in this podcast. Like Anchor, who I recently switched to, they have just dominated the world of podcasting. I'm not going to lie. So you can actually leave me voice messages on my Anchor account, which is just Anchor, ANCHOR, anchor.fm/STB Sports Take. And you can actually record a voice message direct from your phone and upload it, and then I can play it on the next show. So if you have like a topic or a question, or you want to like debate me, in something you've heard in a previous podcast or in this podcast, anyway, you can go to my Anchor profile, STB Sports Take on Anchor, and you can upload a voice message and it can be played. So it's a really cool feature I'd actually been thinking about trying to incorporate for a couple of years, especially back when I was more consistent with this, and could never figure out the best way to do it. And so I always would just tell people to tweet me, So the voice messages is a really cool thing. So you should check that out on Anchor, STB Sports Take, and send me a voice message. Give me a topic you want to debate. Give me your hot take. Could be really fun. So today's going to be a good show. Coming up in today's show, we have a lot of action in the NFL. We've got Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson both wanting out. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into Kobe Bryant and should he be the new logo. That's been talked about quite a bit. Zion versus Giannis. We had a great showdown last night. Going to talk about that. Going to talk some NBA All-Star rosters, the Snubs, MVP ladder. So that's what we've got coming up today. It's going to be a really good show. And we're going to start, though, with this whole Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson thing. Both of these guys want out. Well, Deshaun Watson really wants out. Very vocal, very clear about it. Russell Wilson has said he has not demanded a trade. He's clearly unhappy in Seattle. There's all sorts of reports that he was just furious watching the Super Bowl because he sees how much freedom Tom Brady has and how much power he has over personnel and play calling and things like that. He doesn't have those things. He sees that Tom Brady barely gets touched because his offensive line is so good, and he's been sacked nearly 400 times in his 9-year career. And so there's just these things that are making him unhappy. The biggest one being, I think, just power, But he goes and says, oh, no, I don't want to trade. I'm not demanding a trade. And he has a no-trade clause, by the way. So he says he's not demanding a trade. But then he says, but, if I was to get traded, I don't want to trade. But if I did, I don't want to go to the Cowboys, Raiders, Saints, or Bears. So now he has... And I heard a funny analogy, someone saying, that's like saying I'm not gonna cheat on my wife. I would never cheat on my wife. But if I did, here's four people. That's not going to go over well. So you don't want to do that. So now it seems like there's a very good chance that Russell Wilson's days in Seattle are very numbered, potentially over. And the 4 teams he mentions, of course, are Cowboys, Raiders, Saints, and Bears. Well, I had an interesting thought, and I don't know if either team would go for this. I don't know if the players would go for this. And it's funny, we'll get into that too, like how much power these players have. I'm all for players being able to, request a trade. That's totally within their right. But man, if you're getting paid millions and millions of dollars by your employer to do a job, I think you should do the job. And the rub comes where it's like, okay, if I say I'm a tech sales guy, right? I can quit my tech sales job and go get a different tech sales job at any time. I don't have to get permission. I can break a contract and go to work for another company. Occasionally have non-competes, but usually you have to have equity and things like that. It's not just something you get when you have a salary, right? So in the NBA and the NFL and professional sports, they don't get equity in the team. They just get these fat salaries. But then they have these contracts where they're supposed to stay with that team. And so I'm on the player's side where they shouldn't be so obligated to a team just because they're really good at their sport and that's who drafted them and they needed money and they wanted a contract, so they signed it. But at the same time, if you did sign a contract, you should be obligated to it. So it's like there's these two back and forths. And I think it would be interesting if somehow the NBA and the NFL structured it where you work for the NFL. You don't work for the Seattle Seahawks or the Houston Texans. You work for the National Football League, or you work for the National Basketball Association. And we've assigned you to this division. The division is the Houston Texans, or the division is the Seattle Seahawks. And that's where you're going to be for the next 4 years. So take it or leave it. Like, we're paying you this money. If you want to be in this league, this is the team you're playing for. Now, that would be different because now your employer is the NFL. Now your employer is the NBA, not the team. Because again, using my tech sales example, if I want to leave one tech company to go sell for a different tech company, nothing's stopping me from doing that if I get a better offer. And so I get where the players are coming from, and I'm on their side where they don't have that right. But they also did sign a contract. They are also getting paid a lot of money. And so the trade demand thing can get a little bit diva, in my opinion, a little bit immature, selfish, things like that. So kind of a tough, we don't know all the ins and outs, but getting back to the Deshaun Watson Russell Wilson thing, Deshaun Watson definitely wants out. He met with his new coach yesterday, still wants out, wants nothing to do with the Texans. J.J. Watt's free agent, got released. We'll see how much money he gets and where he goes. And man, that guy, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, such a promising career, and it's just been injury plagued for quite a while now. And anyway, so we'll see what happens with those two offensive and defensive stars for the Texans. But the idea I had getting into this is, what if you just traded Russell Wilson for Deshaun Watson straight up? These are two of the very best quarterbacks in the NFL. Looking at last season's stats, now obviously Russell Wilson's the more experienced one. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to another Super Bowl. He's got a lot of playoff history that's very impressive. Deshaun Watson has not been on a team that was really getting there. But if you look at just their stats, last season, Deshaun Watson actually led the league in yards, and Russell Wilson wasn't too far behind him. So Deshaun Watson, 4,800 passing yards. Russell Wilson, 4,200. Passer rating, Deshaun Watson, 112. Russell Wilson, 105. Touchdowns, Deshaun Watson, 33. Russell Wilson, 40. Interceptions, Deshaun Watson, 7. Russell Wilson, 13. So, and then completion percentage, Deshaun Watson, 70, Russell Wilson, 69. They're literally almost identical across the board. Completion percentage, yards per attempt, Deshaun Watson is higher at 8.9 to 7.5. That's a pretty significant difference, actually, in yards per attempt. But you look at yards, the major statistics that you look at for a quarterback: passer rating, yards, touchdowns, interceptions, completion percentage. They're identical or very, very close to each other across the board. Deshaun Watson's the younger one by 7 years, which is significant. Russell Wilson's the more experienced and proven winner, which is significant. So why not a trade straight across? I can't think of two more evenly matched quarterbacks in the NFL than these two. I would put these two as the two of the top 4 quarterbacks in the league. Obviously, you have to have Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers as the other 2 to round out that 4, but I would say those are the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. And I'd be curious what yours are, so you can send me a voice message on Anchor, or you can tweet me. But to me, those are the 4 best quarterbacks in the league: Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. I'd probably put them pretty close to that order as well. Maybe Aaron Rodgers would be a little bit higher, but those are the top 4. And then you get like the Bradys and after that. So why not trade these two straight up? I don't know. I don't know if the teams would go for it, but I don't know if the players would go for it. The teams probably would. Why not? Like, they're pretty similar too. Like, they're mobile, but they're not like super mobile runners. Like, they're not at the level of Lamar Jackson, which of course nobody is. But they can run. They're very proven quality runners. I don't know. Could be a decent trade. The one trade that I keep hearing about is a one with the Cowboys for Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson are similar. He's right in that same vein, but Dak Prescott does not reach that echelon of Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson. He's not there. I don't even think he's in tier 2, which would be like Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady. I would think that Dak Prescott falls more towards middle of the pack for starting quarterbacks. He's definitely an adequate starter, but you'd have to throw in something more. He's also got injuries he's dealing with. He is younger, though. There was talk of Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott for Russell Wilson. And I'll tell you right now, if I'm the Cowboys, I take that deal. And I hate the Cowboys. I'm a Washington football team fan. It's still hard to say that name. But I'm a Washington football team fan. So I would not want to see Russell Wilson in the NFC East unless he's on the Washington football team. And I don't know if the Washington football team has, the pieces to trade for him. And I don't know why he didn't put them in there. They just won the division. They just went to the playoffs and nearly beat Tom Brady and the Bucs. In fact, the Washington football team was the closest to beating Tom Brady and the Bucs. But he didn't want to go there. So Russell Wilson's teams again, Cowboys, Raiders, Saints, Bears. Curious where you think the best fit is. The Raiders already have two really good quarterbacks. We'll see if they both end up stay there. Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota. The Saints have kind of a similar thing. They've got Drew Brees. They have Taysom Hill, and then they have. I'm only thinking of his. Jameis Winston. I was only thinking of his nickname, which crab legs. But Jameis Winston. So they've got three quarterbacks, one of which is aging and quite possibly going to retire. And then the Bears have Mitch Trubisky, and he's a lower tier starter in the NFL. So it's just an interesting list because all of those teams have quarterbacks that are actually pretty good. Dak Prescott's pretty good. Derek Carr's pretty good. Drew Brees probably won't be there anymore, but then they've got Marcus Mariota, or not Marcus Mariota, but Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. And Mitch Trubisky's not that great, but despite all the jokes about Mitch Trubisky, he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. If he doesn't start for the Bears, he'll probably get moved and start somewhere else because there might be 32 guys. There might be 30, 31 guys better than him, but I don't think there's 32. Quarterback's a tough position. It's a very tough position. So your thoughts on Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson? Very interesting drama, and it's crazy how much power these players have. I think of the James Harden move where he's just like, okay, I'm just not going to play. I'm just going to be fat and overweight and not try until you trade me. And again, I see it. I see their point. They want out, let them out. But they've got to see the owner's point and the fans' point where it's like, wait a second, I'm paying $300 for a ticket. I'm paying hundreds of dollars for NBA League Pass. I bought your freaking jersey. I don't want to see you play. That's how you make your money. Athletes sometimes forget that their salary, and coaches and GMs and owners as well, it all comes from fans. It's all because of you guys. It's all because of us fans. Sure, it's TV deals, but the TV deals are so lucrative because of the fans. The ticket sales are so lucrative because of the fans. The concessions and the merchandise sales is all lucrative because of the fans. They work for the fans. And I think that's frequently forgotten. When I see interviews, players and coaches being disrespectful to the media in interviews, I'm just like, are you forgetting who you're actually employed by? You're not employed by the NBA or the Utah Jazz, although Jazz guys are really pretty good in interviews. You're employed by the fans. We're the ones that really are making the paycheck. And so I think it's important for players and coaches and owners and GMs to remember that. I think they'd make a little bit fewer demands, and they'd probably be a little bit more humble, a little bit more grateful. But anyway, moving on. Now, moving on to the NBA. Big news with the logo. The logo is currently Jerry West. Kind of weird that it's anybody, I guess, if you think about it. Major League Baseball's logo is like a guy at bat with a ball being kind of pitched towards him, but it's not really anybody. It's just a generic graphic they made. The NFL is just a shield, but for whatever reason, the NBA has always been Jerry West, and it's widely known that it's Jerry West, and so now there's a lot of talk about changing it. And Kyrie Irving put up on his Instagram account an image of Kobe Bryant, like a cool silhouette of Kobe Bryant, kind of similar looking actually to the current Jerry West silhouette, and just said, hey, this should be the new logo. And obviously, Kobe Bryant passed very tragically just a year ago, and so there's a lot of sentiment around that, and I could be all in on a logo change. It feels like now it would almost be weird if they didn't change it. You know, like Jerry West kind of came out yesterday and was like, I don't even want to be the logo. I feel uncomfortable being the logo. And he's a Laker guy. He played for the Lakers and was in the front office there for years. And, he's more than willing and ready to pass the torch on to Kobe Bryant as the logo. So anyone alive, it would be just weird if they changed it to them. You can't change it to like LeBron. He's still playing. You can't change it to Jordan, the greatest of all time, because he wouldn't want it. He'd feel uncomfortable with it being him instead of Kobe because Kobe has tragically passed. Plus, Jordan's already got the Jordan brand that logo is so just deeply entrenched in, and it's already on the NBA jerseys anyway. It just represents so much more. It's on college football uniforms and things like that now. So I don't think Jordan would want his logo to be the NBA logo. And so then it comes down to who else is there? Like, if it's going to be a player, it's like, is it going to be Kareem Skyhook? Like, that seems kind of silly. Like, I don't think he'd want it, and nobody does that shot, so that would be a silly logo. So to me, it either needs to change to Kobe Bryant, or it just needs to be a generic image of some sort, a graphic of some sort that's nobody. It's not a silhouette of anyone in particular. It's just a cool, it's just a cool graphic. So, kind of an interesting thing, but Kyrie wants it. Jerry West wants it. A lot of people out there supporting it, and I would hop on that train. I would support it as well. It'd be cool to mix things up, get a new logo. Personally, I think the logo is pretty sweet the way it is, but knowing that it's Jerry West and knowing that people want it changed to a different person makes it feel like, well, let's just change it. So to me, it either needs to change to Kobe or it needs to change to a generic image, but it can't stay Jerry West and it can't change to some other player that's not Kobe Bryant, because he's also one of the greatest of all time. He's a top 10 player of all time, no doubt. So he's not only deserving of it, but there's also the tragic passing. That would be a good, kind of a good way to honor him. They did already name the All-Star Game MVP after him. They are doing, the All-Star Game format after him. So it's like, how much do you need to do? You don't want to be prisoner of the moment too much. But at this point, it would almost feel weird if they didn't change it. I think it's just a matter of time before it does get changed. And I do think part of it is racially driven. I know Kyrie Irving's post at least was where, the league is obviously predominantly black stars. And I think there are those out there. I would not put myself in this category. I don't really think of the logo being a white guy. I just think of it being the NBA logo. But there are those out there that, obviously the league is built on black stars. And so it's like, well, if it's going to be a player, it should be a black player. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But again, to me, the logo has more turned into, it's just the logo. I don't think of Jerry West at all when I look at that logo. I only think of it when it gets brought up, like, oh, that's Jerry West, or if someone quizzes me, like I know that little, trivia question, and I know the answer to that is, oh, it's Jerry West, but I don't think of Jerry West when I see that logo. I don't think of race at all. I just think of the NBA. So, but Kobe would be a great person to change it to. So we'll see what they do. Okay, moving on. Last night we had an epic showdown between Zion Williamson and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Really, obviously the Pelicans versus the Bucks. And the Bucks won. The Bucks came out on top. And the question is at this point, how good is Zion Williamson? Just how good is this kid? How good can he be? They both had monster games last night, Zion and Giannis, that is. And Zion's putting up numbers. So Zion last night had 34 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. And then Giannis had 38 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. So Giannis had 4 more points, 2 more rebounds, 2 fewer assists. His team gets the win by 4 points. But Zion is so young. I mean, it's crazy how good this kid is going to be. He's putting up numbers that we've never seen. His shooting percentage is through the roof. His PER, sorry, I got an ad going here on my computer as I look up. It's not letting me pause it. Okay. But Zion is putting up numbers that are just through the roof. His PER is 4th in the league. He is 4th in the entire NBA in PER. And he's barely 20 years old. Not barely, he's 20 and a half. He's 20 years old, had a very, very awkward rookie season where he was injured for the vast majority of it. And then he comes back and it's freaking COVID bubble time, so that's like super bizarre and unique. So it's almost like he's in his first season right now, really. And he's averaging 25.5 points a game, nearly 7 rebounds and a little over 3 assists, and he's 4th in PER. I mean, those are staggering numbers. And he's shooting over 60% from the field. He's shooting 62% from the field this year, 61.8. I mean, these are numbers that are just ridiculous. Like it's crazy. So the question is, who would you rather have for the next 5 seasons? Giannis or Zion? For the next 5 seasons. Giannis is a 2-time MVP. He's got even a little bit better numbers, but he's also the focal point of the Bucks offense. And Zion is becoming that more and more, but a huge focal point of the Pelicans is Brandon Ingram. He's a big part of that offense. In fact, I think he still averages more shots per game than Zion does. So the offense is still mainly, last night Zion was 15 of 26. Brandon Ingram was 11 of 25. Brandon Ingram, by the way, was 1 for 10 from 3. So not exactly what you want. Interesting, though, Brandon Ingram last night in the plus-minus was a +5. Zion was a -11. Kind of an interesting stat. Lonzo Ball was a +5. Eric Bledsoe was a -20. Those are kind of weird stats. But Giannis was a -2, and his team won. So, in fact, where's Giannis at in PER? Giannis is 3rd, so Giannis is right one spot above Zion in PER. He's 3rd, and Zion is 4th. But Zion is averaging 16 attempts per game this season. Okay, and he's shooting nearly 62%. Brandon Ingram, on the other hand, this season is averaging 18 attempts per game. So Brandon Ingram is shooting more shots. He's shooting 47% from the field. He does take quite a few threes, and so it's not a true comparison. But even his true shooting percentage, or his effective field goal percentage, is still lower than Zion's by quite a bit. His effective field goal percentage is 53.8. Zion's is 62. So Zion should be the focal point of that offense. I think you'll see it shift to that. But again, the question I ask, who would you rather have on your team for the next 5 years? For the next 5 years, I personally think there's still a huge argument in favor of Giannis, because Giannis is still young himself, and Giannis is a 2-time MVP. He's proven just how driven and motivated he is. But Zion is right there. Like I saw some people on Twitter acting like as if Zion didn't deserve to be an all-star. He totally deserves to be an all-star. And if he entered the dunk contest, he'd win without even, it wouldn't even be a competition. The guy's in-game dunks would win a dunk contest. Like, he's a freak athlete. We've never seen anything like it. That size, that power, and that athleticism and agility and jumping ability and explosiveness. I mean, the only thing to fear with Zion is his health. And, I mean, he had the thing last year. I think they were being overly cautious to make sure that their golden goose didn't get spoiled in his first season. I think that was probably wise of them. But he's shown no signs of fragility this season. He seems totally fine. And so we'll see how that goes. That is something to think about. I don't know that like he's so big and explosive and powerful that his like ligaments can't keep up, but I'm also not a doctor, so I have no idea. I think all that's just kind of fun to talk about, but to me, like, Zion's going to be a star for years to come in this league. The kid's super impressive, and he's humble and like just a good teammate. Like, there's very few people I would want for the next 5 years, 10 years over Zion Williamson. But for the time being, for 5 years, I'm still going to go Giannis. I think Giannis is one of the few players that could lead a team to a championship. I think there are a handful of guys in the league that are the type that can be the number one guy on a championship team. And I would not obviously put Zion there yet. I would put Giannis there. I would. I see him. I see his leadership ability being there. I see his basketball ability being there. He's not the greatest shooter, so in closing situations, you do need help. But so did Shaq. And Shaq won 4 titles, 3 finals MVPs. Shaq was absolutely the number one option on all three of those Laker championships he won with Kobe. Sorry, all you Kobe lovers. I love Kobe too. It's no disrespect to Kobe, but there's a reason Shaq was the MVP for three of those series that he won, because he was the MVP. That's why he won the MVP, because he was the MVP. So if Shaq was, then Giannis clearly is as well. I would obviously put LeBron there, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, guys that have proven it. There's not many guys other than that I would put on that list of like truly capable of leading a team to a championship. I may be biased, but I would put a guy like Donovan Mitchell on there, not because he's so dominant like a LeBron or a KD or a Giannis, but because he understands that he's not quite to that level, and so therefore he really gets happy when his teammates succeed. He's a tremendous teammate. So I could see a guy like that, surrounded by a quality team also doing it. Again, kind of like I mentioned in yesterday's podcast, kind of like the 04 Pistons. But Giannis is there, Zion is not. But I was so impressed with Zion. Every time I watch that kid play, I'm just like, man, this guy is something very, very special. It'll be interesting to see how far he goes. The sky's the limit for him. Okay, sticking in the NBA, what did I say about the Wizards yesterday? In yesterday's podcast, I mentioned the Wizards as my number 10 team in my power rankings. I ranked the top 10 teams. I started with 10, moved up, and I had the Wizards at number 10. And many of you laughed and thought, what is this guy talking about? They're the 13th team in the East, for crying out loud. How can they be 10th in the league? Well, I explained that they have one of the best records against teams above 500. So in their games against opponents that are 500 or better, they have the third best record in the league behind only the Brooklyn Nets and the Utah Jazz. They're ahead of everyone else in that category, including the Clippers, including the Lakers, including the Bucks, including the Sixers, including everybody else. And last night they added to that by beating the Nuggets again, sweeping the season series against them. And they beat the Nuggets to get an even better record against teams with winning records. And now they've won 6 of 7. And I'm telling you, the Wizards are legit. They're not like a contender by any means. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. But with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, you're not missing the playoffs in the East. No way. No way they missed the playoffs in the East. So, interesting fact about that game, though. The Nuggets, the Wizards won, fair and square, but the Nuggets had a boneheaded play there at the end. They had a 3-on-1 fast break. Practically a 4-on-1, but definitely a 3-on-1, an undisputable 3-on-1. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to try, Facundo Campazzo. And the three of them have to beat one defender, a singular defender. At the very end of the game, they're down 2 with seconds left. Michael Porter Jr. is going into the lane and then just flares way out to the three-point line. And Campazzo is going towards the lane and flares out to the three-point line. And I don't know if they were just getting out of the way for Jamal Murray to make a move for the blow-by and he could get the layup, but they had easy layups. Both of them had easy layups they could have gotten had they just gone towards the basket. Murray could have dumped it over the top, boom, layup, overtime, and they get a chance to win in overtime. Instead, they both flare out to the three-point line, thinking maybe they're down by 3. And, Jamal Murray gets stopped, has to give the ball up, and Campazzo chucks up a semi-prayer at the buzzer and doesn't even really come that close. And I'm sitting there thinking, what are they doing? They're only down by 2. Like, why are they flaring out to the three-point line? Why are they going for the win when they've got an easy, like a guaranteed chance at overtime? Do you want a guaranteed 100% chance at overtime, or do you want a 30% chance at winning? I mean, to me, it's like, let's take the overtime and win in those 5 minutes, So, interesting thing, but the Wizards get the dub, and I needed that because it came at perfect timing after my power rankings had them 10th in the league, even though they have a losing record and they're 13th in the East. Okay, an interesting stat I saw today. I actually just saw this earlier today. I had to mention it. This is kind of a weird stat, but kind of a cool one. But the 3 times this season, there's been an 8-point favorite who lost by 25 or more. 3 times. All 3 of those games were the Clippers. The Clippers 3 different times have been 8+ point favorites and lost by 25 or more. No other team in the league has done it even once. They've done it 3 times. kind of an interesting stat. Not sure if it means anything, but it is pretty weird. So I wanted to share that. All right, for our last segment, I want to talk about this whole idea of the All-Star snub, okay? There's all this talk about getting snubbed. Oh, he got snubbed. And there's beef, there's an argument for a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that could have been All-Stars. Sure, Devin Booker could have been an All-Star, and he is an All-Star again, kind of by default because somebody got injured. So the guy's actually never been a legitimate All-Star. He's now a 2-time All-Star by default, but a 0-time All-Star by actually being voted in by the fans and or the coaches and players. He's never actually gotten in the legitimate, true way. And he's a really freaking good player. But who would you take out? Who would you take out if you're going to put Devin Booker in? I saw LeBron James post that Devin Booker is the most disrespected guy in the league, and then Damian Lillard after him. And I don't disagree with the Damian Lillard one. Damian Lillard's like a top 5 player in this league. In fact, I'd put him on that list of guys that could lead a team to a championship. I would. I think Damian Lillard's that high of a talent. But I mean, obviously he hasn't done it, but he's clutch in the playoffs. He's won big series. Very good player. Anyway, Booker. If you're going to put Booker in, well, who are you going to take out? There's only so many spots. So who are you going to take out? The guy that you should take out if you're going to put Booker in would be Chris Paul. But Chris Paul's also deserving. But maybe Booker's more deserving? I don't know. I mean, Booker's been with the Suns for several years now, and they've not really done anything. Chris Paul joins, and they're 4th in the West. So to me, the wins are a big deal in being an All-Star. That's what Donovan Mitchell, it's like a no-brainer. He's the number 1 option, the undisputed best player on the best team in the NBA. Of course he's going to be an All-Star. His numbers warrant it, and then his team wins warrant it. Booker has very similar stats to Donovan Mitchell, slightly worse. But basically, they're very similar players, honestly, statistically. But he's not proven to generate wins. And only when Chris Paul came to the team did it lead to wins, and I think that's why Chris Paul got the nod as an All-Star and Devin Booker did not. So I get it. Should DeMar DeRozan be an All-Star? Should CJ McCollum be an All-Star? There's so many guys where it's should a lot of Jazz fans are saying Mike Conley should be an All-Star. He's having a great season. He's one of those guys that's actually never been an All-Star. He's kind of known as being the greatest talent to never make an All-Star game. I'm a Jazz fan, but I'm a realist. Mike Conley's not an All-Star. I'm sorry. He's not one of the 12 best players in the Western Conference. He's just not. I mean, he's like the 4th best player on his own team. So he's just not an All-Star. I'm sorry. He might even be the 5th best player on his own team, honestly. We talked about this yesterday. You've got, obviously, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And then, I'm sorry, I'm putting Jordan Clarkson as a more important piece to that team. And then it's a toss-up between Conley and Bogdanovich. I'd probably give the nod to Conley, but that puts him 4th on his own team. So are you really going to have a guy that's 4th on his own team be an All-Star? I don't think so. So to me, there's a lot of guys out there that you could make the argument for, but they could maybe do away with the positioning where it's let's just take the 12 best players. Let's just forget about positions and just whoever's the best players, let's just take them. They kind of do that where they make the 4 and 5 very interchangeable, the 3 and 4 pretty interchangeable, 1 and 2 very interchangeable, even 2 and 3 interchangeable. They kind of make positions very interchangeable. But ultimately, we're still taking some bigs and we're taking some Domantas Sabonis. That's a guy that probably got snubbed, But it's who are you going to take out? Maybe Vucevic. But they're both very deserving. So the one thing they should do is just expand it to 15 players. Then the issue there is obviously you're going to have even less playing time for guys. I don't think you'd see the players complaining much about that, though. I think especially in this era of load management and just taking games off to rest up, I don't think you'd see many players complaining about playing 10 minutes in the All-Star game instead of 15, 20. And then the starters get 15, 20 instead of 20, 25 kind of thing. I don't think you'd see many guys complaining about that. It might be more fun. But you'd end up with the same problem. What happened in the college football playoffs? We expanded from just 2 teams in the national championship to 4 in the playoffs, and we were super excited when that happened. And within a year, we were it's not enough. We need 8. We need 10. We need 12. We need more. So it's never going to be enough. There's always going to be people that are on that bubble, on the fringe. And to me, like, they got the All-Star ballots correct. They just did. Like, those are the best players, especially when you have to break it down a little bit by position. I can't think of many guys that I can't think of anyone actually that has like a true beef. Like, I should have made it over this guy. Like, you can say, oh, I should have made it. Everyone can tweet, Booker. Okay, have the guts, LeBron, have the guts to say who he should have made it over. So LeBron, he's so disrespected. He should have made the All-Star game. Okay, that's great. Who are you taking out to put him in? Because you can't just have 13 in the West and 12 in the East. So you want Devin Booker in there so bad. Have the guts to say he should have made it over this guy. And if you're not going to have the guts to say that, then just don't say it at all, because you can't have it both ways. That's my take on the whole snub thing. Stop complaining unless you're willing to say, this guy should have made it over this guy. This guy's a good player, but he shouldn't be there. If you don't have the guts to call out the guy that shouldn't be there, then don't say someone should have been there. That's what I have to say about that. All right, that's all for today's podcast. You guys are awesome. I'm going to try and keep this consistent. Please share the podcast. It helps a lot when I can see the views, or not the views, but the amount of listens and downloads going up. And again, remember, on Anchor, you can send me that voice message. It's just anchor.fm/STB Sports Take. That is all for today. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out stbsportstake.com. Simply the best in sports. 'Cause we are